This is an old Insley Dragline crane. It has some kind of a huge 6-cylinder flathead engine. All of the control levers are frozen. Wah, wah, wah. Hey, there we go. Well, howdy folks, welcome back to part 2 of the Insley crane revival, or whatever we want to call it. Well, for the most part, I just found, normal carburetor-y type stuff. A couple of plugged up jets and, no big deal, clean it out. But there's a little bit of trickery going on here. This doohickey, this rod, hooks up to this doohickey, a little piston, and this thing slides down into the float bowl, and I think that's an accelerator pump. So I made a little diagram of how I think it works. So it looks like there's a vacuum passage above. It runs through here and comes out right about here above the throttle butterfly. So that would be full manifold vacuum, and I think that's supposed to pull a piston here up when it has vacuum, and then when you snap the throttle, you would lose your manifold vacuum, and the piston would spring back down. There's a big spring that fits over this thing right here, and in the process it would do two things. It's going to push on a little valve right here that's going to allow more fuel into the high-speed side of the carburetor. I think it would also squirt a little bit of fuel out here into the into the throttle body. I'm not exactly sure how the fuel gets from here up to here. I guess it doesn't really. I guess we don't have to solve that mystery right now. The biggest thing I think is that this piston currently is seized in the upper half of the carburetor. Not quite sure. At first I thought it was some kind of a press fit, but I actually think that maybe it's just jammed in there. So let's see if I can grab a little socket. That might work. So if I'm thinking about it correctly, I should be able to drive that down a little bit. Man, I don't know. It's pretty seized in there. And maybe a little bit of heat would be better. I don't know that the accelerator pump necessarily has to work for our application. I mean, they obviously went to a lot of work to design this feature into the carburetor, so it leads me to believe it's pretty important. Well, I'll put a little bit of heat on it and we'll see what happens. Well, that escalated quickly, but we're going to get her out of there, don't worry. Oh yeah, coming right out. All it needed was somebody to drill a 5/16 hole through it, tap it for 3/8/16. Boom! There it is. I don't think we're going to be able to reuse it though. Well, maybe. There's a slight chance we could patch that up. But I looked online. These parts are available. They're not too expensive, so maybe we'll just load up the parts cannon. take a look at that passage. Well, you can't see. So there's a nice layer of crud there on top of where the valve has been sitting. I don't think that's been working for a long time. Well, the good news is she's back to doing the old in and out, and the bore looks totally fine. That thing was just seized up solid in there. Wonder how long it's been like that. Probably forever. Anyway, really the only issue is that now it's got a giant hole in it. So I could plug the hole and then somehow peen this linkage deal back in here. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work. Like I said, I know there's a kit available for this carb that has these parts, but it's like 80 bucks. And that's a lot of Leinenkugels. Plus we don't know if anything else on this old turkey is actually going to work. I mean, I know we can get the engine to run, but is it worth spending 80 bucks? Let me sleep on it. It's about 10 o'clock at night. I say we have a go at fixing this accelerator pump plunger assembly. Are you guys thinking what I'm thinking? Huh? I don't see what we have to lose. I mean, like I said, worst case scenario, we just buy a new one. But if we can fix this thing for a few nickels worth of solder, I think it's worth trying. Alright, it's going okay, I guess. I'm not the world's greatest solderer. But the reason I put the carbon on that shaft is I was hoping that that would keep the solder from sticking to that shaft while we try to stick these two together, and I've gone ahead and tinned them both. Problem is I can't turn the torch down far enough to really do this right, and I can't find my butane torch. Alright, we better quit while we're ahead. Well, it's not going to win me any beauty contests, but I do believe that'll work. The washer here is definitely held in place solidly, and the little rod here has plenty of float. So mechanically, I think that's all we really need. And definitely this end is sealed up. Kind of hard to get the solder to wick around the threads, but I don't think we're going to have any problems. And went ahead and cleaned up the OD a little bit. That'll work. Okay, I think I've got a gasket made up. That was a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. And it's not perfect, but I think it'll do just fine. It's kind of interesting, this carburetor does not have a adjustment on the main jet. All you get is the low speed. So whatever she's ported for is what she's going to be. Normally it would be in this passage, but it is absent. That's it. That's the accelerator pump. So I mistakenly thought that the the top spool was the pump, but that's just for the vacuum. So this is the pumping action right here. And it definitely works. Okay, cool. We'll put the thing back together. So one thing we have to note, the needle and seat are both pretty badly worn. And I might stop by my dad's shop and see if he's got one of these that has a rubber tip on it. That would be better, I think, than this solid style. Well, I stopped and raided my dad's hoard of carburetor parts, and I found a pretty much matching float valve that has the little rubber tip. It's used, but I still think it's better than the one that we had. I also grabbed a better steel one. Worst case scenario, we'll do the old hammer trick and we'll drop this in here and coin the seat. But we're going to try this rubber one first. Hopefully that works out. So that said, I don't see why we can't just go ahead and slam this carburetor back together. Well, I made one more kind of interesting discovery on this carburetor. So this right here is a passage that would normally be the vacuum passage for the accelerator pump. So the accelerator pump's here, and the passage runs through the body of the throttle body here and comes out right here inside the throttle body area. But remember that this machine actually has this secondary throttle plate here as part of the governor linkage. So you don't really have true manifold vacuum here. The only place you have true manifold vacuum is above the second throttle body. So anyway, what they've done is they put a kind of a hollow, basically a jet in here, that blocks off this passage right here and opens it to the top of the flange. Then, in this other throttle body, there's a corresponding passage that's drilled through it, and it comes out right here on the top side of the throttle plate, right? So you have full manifold vacuum here, and everything gets passed back through the carburetor. The problem is, this passage is basically lines up with this spot on the carburetor, so it's 180 degrees off. Hopefully you guys can see that. But they've mitigated that problem by putting a groove in this throttle body right here, and you know, the groove basically allows the vacuum to come out to this other opening in the gasket. So everything's cool there. But the problem is, somebody, more or less crudely, has made this plate, which they sandwiched right here between this second throttle body and the top of the carburetor. And it's completely blocked. So there's no way for that vacuum to get from the accelerator pump to the manifold. So that probably explains why the accelerator pump was froze up. It hasn't been getting a vacuum signal. So I don't know what we're going to do. We could possibly eliminate this thing entirely and kind of more or less put it back the way that it's supposed to be, and then we'd have to come up with some other way to hold the throttle cable for now. Or we could just drill a couple of holes in this thing and kind of move on. I'm not sure. I gotta think about it for a minute. But we definitely have to do something, or the carburetor's never going to work right. Oh yeah. Well, I brought along this little tank. I thought we could use it to hold some gas just temporarily, but the inside is pretty scuzzy. So, see if I can clean it up a little bit. We may have to get something else. I found this Volkswagen Surge tank down here, and it's marked good, even though it's cracked in the side. Plus, it doesn't have the right kind of fittings, so I can't really use that. Well, I think we're about ready. I've got my battery-shaped object hooked up here. We'll see what it can do. This thing is... it's so craptacular, but I can't get rid of it. I've had this battery for as long as I've had the YouTube channel here. I bought this way back in the old days, when it was just me and my mom watching, for the Big Ugly Forklift project. If you drill down in the archives, you can find that. Anyway, it's just been sitting in my shop, and I use it for, you know, various things, but it's never really had any use. But it is a pile of crap. Supposedly, it's 550 cold cranking amps, I guess. But, yeah, it's not really Farm and Fleet's fault. When you pay less than $60 for a battery, you know what you're getting. Alright, the carburetor is installed. This is the solution that I came up with. I just moved that plate up to the top above that second throttle body, and then kind of tweaked it around so the cable's on more of an angle now, but at least we don't have a blockage in that vacuum port. So I think there's a chance the accelerator pump will function correctly now. And then we got a fuel line hooked up to the temporary fuel tank up there. This is a 3/8 line, which is currently clamped down onto a 1/4 inch barb on the carburetor, so that leaks a little bit, but you know, let's see if it'll run, then we'll dial back the sketchiness. Well, that's a whole lot more than we had before. I got to adjust the throttle linkage here. Something's wrong with that. Wow. Okay. Well. Alright, we're getting somewhere. I gotta reconfigure my linkages here. Well, it kind of runs. We don't have much of a low-speed circuit, and it won't really run without the choke on. So we've still got a problem somewhere. Not exactly sure what it is, but I'm going to mess around with it here for a minute, and I'll bring you guys back. Wow, it runs. Actually runs pretty good. I think the problem was I didn't put enough gas in it. Thing likes gas. I only put like enough to fill the float bowl, and I think as soon as it ran that out, it was just constantly trying to use the choke to pull more through. So yeah, I don't have any idea if it has any water in the cooling system. Guess we could find that out. I can't see, can you guys? Yeah, I brought some along. So we'll splash her full and see if we can make it run for a while. That's awesome. It actually runs pretty good. I think we got the valves cleaned up and it sounds like it's hitting on all 6 cylinders. Well, there must be a hole in the top tank on the radiator right there. I can fill it with coolant until it gets to that, and then that's the end. But that should more than cover the core, so I don't think we're going to worry about that too much. I think we're out of gas, and we're bubbling out the top radiator tank, so yeah, that's not good. One of the thermostat's probably stuck. Yeah, but it runs. Actually runs pretty good. It doesn't really want to take throttle, so there may still be a problem with that accelerator pump, but yeah, it's extremely dangerous the way it is with no governor on it. You could very easily overspeed the engine, so I can't believe they took that apart. Man, I would have done almost anything I could have to fix that governor. Alright folks, that's going to be it for the second video, I think. I'm just kind of winding it down for the day. I've been making one video per day that I've worked on this machine. I'm pretty happy with the results. We got the old girl running. It doesn't run perfectly, but it does idle, and it doesn't smoke too bad. I don't anticipate a lot of problems with that engine, other than the cooling system. We're going to have to do something with that radiator. Maybe we can just jam it full of stop leak or something, get by for a while. We'll have to see how the videos go, and whether or not there's any interest. That will determine sort of what we do next. I'm not so sure about the controls on this machine. It's got a lot of clutches and brake bands and levers and linkages that are all frozen. I'm also not entirely sure how to run it, so I may reach out to Mr. 73 Diamond Rio or Diamond REO, however he says that. I'll put a link in the description to his channel. He has an Insley pull shovel, which is sort of the same machine, but instead of being a dragline, it's a shovel. But I think the controls are more or less the same. He also has a dragline. It's a Lima. But anyway, I'll try to reach out to him and see if he has any insight about the controls and maybe what to watch out for, because it seems pretty dangerous to me. I don't want to go in there willy-nilly. If we can track it out of here, that'd be pretty cool. We'll have to move a bunch of this crap that's in the way, but if we can move it, that would be pretty awesome. And like I said, the boom is not here, so if we want to put the thing back together and make it into an actual drag line again, that's going to be a lot more work on my part. Anyway, thanks guys for watching, and I'm sure I'll have something else coming up soon. If you like this kind of video, go ahead and give her a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos kind of like this, hit the old subscribe button. It kind of helps me gauge the interest in the videos and decide, which way to go with the future videos. Thanks everybody for watching. See you next time.